If you're a real estate agent, then you know the struggle of having to manage your calendar with all the different dates you have going on, condition dates, possession dates, deposit dates, so many different dates that you have to stay on top of. It can get very easy to get disorganized, and before you know it, things are getting mixed up and you're missing dates, and nobody wants that, but unfortunately, every realtor knows that struggle. So today, I'm gonna be showing you a solution on how you can solve all of that using AI and automation. So what we're gonna be doing is we're gonna be setting up an entire AI automated system. It's going to read through your documents as they get signed, and it's going to pull the dates out of it, pull the address of the property, pull the intention of the document, and it's going to add that into your calendar for you and basically manage your entire calendar so that you don't have to. Now, fair warning here, this is a more complicated automation. If you've never done an automation before, I do not recommend that you start with this one because there's a lot of prompting and a lot of AI stuff that's involved. However, if you do have experience with AI prompting and with doing automations and stuff, this is a super powerful automation that you can set up in your business. It'll not only save you time, but it'll also keep you super organized and allow you to stay on top of your client communication, which will impress the hell out of your clients because not a lot of agents are doing this, unfortunately. So without further ado, let's get into it. So we're going to hop into make.com here. Make.com is where I build 90% of my automation, some of them in Zapier, only if like Zapier has a certain integration that I need that Make doesn't. But if Make has it, I much prefer it on Make. It's just a much easier way to like see what's going on and kind of visualize the automation itself. And I think just an easier platform to use. So this is one of the calendar automations that I built for a client. This part here where everything branches off, this is going to change depending on your needs, your specific documents that you're looking at, what region you're in, things like that. But you'll see with the branches that we did here how you would be able to branch it off to fit your own needs. So to start off, our trigger is going to be watching our DocuSign envelopes. Now this might change if you use other e-signature platforms, but the concept's the same. Basically, it watches your DocuSign envelopes to wait for when something is signed and completed. From there, it goes into an iterator just to kind of break up the information into specific arrays. Then it goes to a Google Sheets that I created. Basically, all this Google Sheets is it just records the envelope IDs of the completed documents so that it's not going to do it twice on the same completed document, if that makes sense. So it's going to search the row to see if that specific envelope ID exists. The aggregator here is just so that it can search the entire row all at once rather than just the first one and then the second one. So it searches the entire thing all at once, searches for that specific ID. If the ID does not exist, then it'll keep going. If the ID does exist, it just stops the automation because obviously we've already done this automation with that specific one. So that's just the filter here, is the actual envelope ID. So you can see the text from here, the aggregation, does not contain the envelope ID. These filters are very easy to set up. There's basically just two boxes that you can do. The only thing that I would recommend is you pay attention to case insensitive or not. So the difference here obviously is if I choose this, it's case insensitive, which means that uppercase, lowercase doesn't matter. Some of my filters, I use case insensitive a lot, which you'll see coming up here soon. But for this one, I made it case sensitive so that it has to exactly match the envelope ID there. So if it doesn't exist and it's a new envelope, then it's going to add that ID to the Google Sheet so that next time it will recognize it. And then it's going to download the document that was in DocuSign. I put a filter here to filter out the signing certificate or whatever DocuSign calls it. They always send you two documents. One's the actual document and the other one is like the certificate. I filtered that out. If you click on the DocuSign automation here, there is a part that says certificate. Do you want it? Yes or no? I have it as no, but for whatever reason, it still sends it. So that's why I just put a filter here to filter that out. Otherwise, it's going to run the automation for the document, and then it's going to run it a second time for the certificate. So filter that out. Then we send the document into Google Cloud Vision. Now what this does is it basically just takes the file from the DocuSign and it just breaks it down into just sort of regular text so that it's easier to read through. I have another text aggregator here because this is going to break it down page by page. Some of the documents are multiple pages long, so that would be multiple occurrences that it would have to do. Like it would have to send page 1, do the automation, page 2, do the automation, just like that. So instead, we're going to aggregate all of the text from each page into one single file, basically. Then it passes into an AI module. So what this does is it looks at the entire script from the Google Cloud Vision, and then it determines what kind of document it is. Basically, it's just looking for the title of the document to determine exactly what document it is. As you can see from this whole thing, there's a lot of different AI modules that go into this, and every single one of these is different in the prompting and in the actual intent of what we're trying to accomplish with it. So that's why I said at the beginning of this video, like if you've never done AI prompting before and you have no experience with it, I do not recommend starting with this automation because there's so many different steps that you have to do. And in order to get it to work correctly and work consistently, you have to know how to prompt well and the different types of prompting that goes into it. Like you can't just type a message that says, what type of document is this? Because it might get it right once, but it's not going to get it right every time, or it's not going to understand exactly what you're trying to accomplish. So as you can see, like there's so many different prompts in these, like probably each one has 5 or 6 individual messages that it says. And then you also have to know the difference between a system prompt versus a user prompt versus an assistant prompt, which maybe I'll do a video on that another day, just going through how to prompt and what the differences are. But anyway, so it's going to pass through that module and it's going to determine essentially what the title of the document is. Then it's going to go to this router, and this router is going to determine what path that it's going to go down based on what title this module has given it. So if you noticed, every single one of these paths has a different filter on it. So for this agent, they mainly deal with 4 different kinds of documents. The first one is amendments. That can be an amendment to any type of document they have, but a specific kind of amendment. The second one, I label it as ESR, but it's exclusive seller representation. So that's like a document stating that you're going to represent a seller. Next one is an EBR, which is like the document to represent a buyer. And then the fourth one, you can't really see it, but it says OTP or offer to purchase. So it's when somebody sends you an offer. So based on the title that this module has given it, it's going to go down a specific path. Now I'm going to take you down each one individually to show you what each one does. So to start off, we're going to go down the amendment path. The first module that it's going to hit is it's going to look at the amendment, and the AI is going to determine what is the reason for the amendment. Is it because there's a price change? Is it because there's a date change? Is it because, just some wording had to be fixed? What is the reason for it? Because this is a calendar management automation, the only type of amendment that we care about is a date change, obviously. So the next module that it's going to go to is another AI module that's going to just say yes or no. Is the reason here because of a date? Then we set up a filter that says if the answer is yes, meaning yes, the reason is because of a date, it's going to keep going and it's going to go to this one. This module is going to look at the contract and it's going to determine what the new date is. So what has it been amended to? This one that it goes to next is going to determine what the old date was. So it's being amended from this date to this date. Then it's going to go into the title of the date. So is it a condition date? Is it a possession date? Is it a deposit date? What's the title of the date? From there, it's going to determine what the address is that the amendment actually pertains to. And the reason why we're going to get this is because we're going to use it when we make the actual title of the calendar update. Then I send it into this tool module that just creates different variables of all the different things that we just laid out. So we have our new date, our title, our address, our old date. I don't think you necessarily have to have this in here because you could refer back to these, but I think it's just easier and cleaner to kind of put it all into one place. So after that's done, then it's going to go to your calendar. So in this case, it was Google Calendar. It's going to find the old date because assuming this automation was running when the original contract was sent, so let's say it was an original offer contract, now one of the dates is being amended later, that date would already be in their calendar. So we have to find that old date and then we go into a router. So I split it up so that if the old date is actually there, it's going to go up here. If the old date doesn't exist, meaning it was never put into the calendar, then it's just going to create the date. If that old date did exist, it's going to go up to here and it's going to delete that old date because we're amending it it doesn't need to exist anymore. So we delete that date, and then we're going to create the new event or the new reminder or whatever you want to do. You create that in the calendar. So that's how we do it for amendments. We're going to find the old date, then we're going to delete it if it exists, and then we're going to create a new thing in the calendar. Next up, I'm going to do both these at the same time because they're practically the same other than like 2 extra steps. But one is an agreement with a seller and one is the agreement with a buyer. So it's going to go up the step and it's going to figure out what the start date of the agreement is. So when is the agreement with your clients starting? And it's also going to figure out the end date of the agreement. Now, the only difference here in these 2 steps is that with the seller, it's also going to determine what their property address is that you're selling. Obviously, with a buyer, there is no address because you're finding them a home. So yeah, that's the only difference in step there. Then just like the amendment step, it's going to create variables out of it. And then it's going to go and it's going to put that into your calendar. So for the seller, it's going to put the start date of the contract and the end date of the contract. For the buyer, it's just going to put the end date. The reason why is for this client, for the buyer contract, it doesn't really matter when the contract starts because you're just constantly looking for homes for them. Whereas with the seller, the start date does matter because that's the actual date that the listing is going to hit the market. Then lastly, we have the offers here. So if an offer gets sent in, it's going to go down this way and it's going to look for a few different things. So the first date that it wants to find is the completion date or the possession date. So when is the keys actually going to be handed over? Next, it's going to find a deposit date. So when does the deposit due by? Then it's going to find out whether or not, this is a yes or no, whether or not this contract has conditions. Now, this I would say was actually quite a difficult one to figure out the prompting on because the way that this agent's contracts are set up is the conditions, like the standard conditions that you have, your inspection condition, your financing condition, condo doc review, like that kind of stuff, it's already written in the contract and the agent has to, fill it in if it actually applies. So originally, the AI was always reading that those conditions were there because technically in the script, like when it looks at the Google Cloud Vision script, it's seeing that those conditions are always there. So we had to do a lot of trial and error on the training and the prompting for this AI to know the difference between a condition that is supposed to be there versus a condition that just was never filled in. But we got to figure it out. So it looks at it and it determines yes or no, are there conditions? If there are not conditions in the contract, then it's just going to go down to here and it's going to figure out what the address of the property is that the offer pertains to. And it's going to put those dates into your calendar. If there are conditions, then it's going to go up this way. And then it's going to figure out what kind of conditions there are. So is there a financing condition? Is there an inspection condition? Is there whatever? It's going to figure out what kind of conditions there are. It's going to make a list of them. It's going to figure out the dates of those specific conditions. And then it's going to figure out the address of the property, just like down here. From there, it's going to put in all the individual dates, and then you're good to go. Now, the reason why we get the address here is because when we're putting in an event into our calendar, you have to name the event, right? You have to have something for you to look at when your calendar reminder pops up. And how we've done it is we've put, let's say for this one, it'll say condition day dash and then the address. So condition day 123 Main Street. Very easy for the agent to understand what that reminder is for. But that's why we get this specific address of the property for, I think, every single one of these SKUs. So that's it. That's kind of a high level view of how we do the calendar management automation. Like I said, every client is a little bit different. Like we have some clients who branch off even more and they'll do things like ordering a gift for a client who's moving in or ordering postcards or ordering door hangers or ordering different marketing material for a listing X amount of days after the listing day. Like there's a lot of different things that you can add on into it. And once you get sort of the basics down of how to build this out, then you'll understand how powerful this can really get once you're doing it. But for this client in particular, they just wanted their contract dates to be put into their calendar so that they didn't have to worry about it all the time. So that's it for this video. Let me know if you have any questions and also drop me a comment and let me know if this video was valuable, if this is something that you would use in your real estate business. I'm going to try and be posting weekly or maybe twice weekly different automations like this, how to integrate AI into your real estate business. things like that, because I really think that AI is a revolutionary tool and just a technology that everyone needs to be utilizing, not just real estate agents, but that's the industry I'm in. So that's why I'm making these videos. But hope you enjoy the video, and we'll see you next time.